Thank you all for coming along. We probably still will have some stragglers who are fighting the traffic coming in, but we won't let that stop us. You've been waiting patiently enough as it is. So tonight's event is a little bit different to what's sort of happening in the industry. The building industries are a little bit behind the times as far as a lot of industries go. And we're looking to change that. So often construction companies, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, lawyers and so forth, we all work on the same things but quite independently, and we don't really work together that well in the past. And that's something that all of us have teamed together to fix and to create a bit of a synergy. So that's what this is about. And you'll get a broad overview as to the market and what's happening. So as you know, because I bombed you all with lots of emails as to what's happening, so we've got Barfoot and Thompson. So Steve's going to come up and give a talk about buying your first home. Now, bear in mind, that this can also apply to small investors and so forth as well. So I'd like to welcome Steve to come on board and give your presentation.
We're here to give you a helping hand. That's why the three of us have joined. Great synergy between obviously needing to get funds, looking for your property, finding the right property with the right building company, and hopefully we can help out in that process as well in terms of finding the right place for you as well. So, a good market currently for first home buyers, we believe. 3 years ago, there was an influx of foreign cashed up buyers, and I was always working with first home buyers who were saying, we get to auctions, we get beaten every time. So every time they were getting really, really frustrated. Now there's a bit more time. Interest rates are low, and the latest information from the Reserve Bank seems to be they may even drop down a peg or two. So that's awesome. House prices, well, they're not spiralling upwards. They're keeping a reasonably even keel, so that's really good for you as well. So you've got more time to work on this and think about what you're going to do. The other really good thing is there are new developments starting up everywhere throughout Auckland, and they're offering lifestyle, they're offering all sorts of good infrastructures, and they're looking really, really good. There's a new development in Huapai, which is called the Huapai Triangle, and we have some sections there, and they're really worth looking at. The benefits of building a new home. My father, I grew up in Milford. He had a 1920s villa. I think he spent his entire lifetime working on the house every weekend. The other thing too is renovation. Getting tradespeople is really difficult. Costs are high. So a brand new house, no renovation costs. Weekends not spent working on the house. You've got a lifestyle. If you buy into a subdivision, you can usually choose a demographic which suits your lifestyle and who you are. Brand new house, double glazing, heat pumps, standard fittings, warm and dry, modern wiring. Don't have to buy an old house and rewire it. Obviously modern and functional kitchens with brand new appliances, as you say, low maintenance cost. So yeah, there's lots of cool benefits. So what's the market doing? As I said, it seems to be fairly stable, helped by low interest rates. Existing homes are taking a bit longer to sell than they were a couple of years ago. They're still selling without any signs of prices plummeting. So yes, you've got time to buy something. I think you can be reasonably assured that it's not going to dive over the next few years. So it's still a great investment. So this is just a snapshot of recent sales. So April, central Auckland, so it's dropped down a bit from 40 to 20. Central suburbs, being Ponsonby and around there, 103, 135, so that's reasonably stable. Eastern suburbs dropped a little bit. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. So yeah, essentially not too many changes. Average sale price by area. So you see that the central Auckland, where there's a lot of apartments, So the sale price has dipped a little bit there. Central suburbs still maintaining good profile. West Auckland, interesting that the prices have gone up a little bit. So from 758, 641 down the bottom to 807, 777. So just a bit of a snapshot. It's a simple process. I mean, a crucial thing for you in buying your first home, obviously, is to know how much you've got to spend. Because we can all waste a whole lot of time and you find you fall in love with something and you can't afford it. So really critical to sit down with your squirrel broker, work out what you can spend and take it from there. Then you can meet with us and we can have a plan and set aside a list of priorities that suit your needs in terms of lifestyle, transport, and we then create a short list of sections for you to look at. You decide upon a section, and then you can discuss with Stonewood Homes a design that suits that particular section, because obviously a design needs to suit the demographics and geography of the section. A beautiful Stonewood home awaits. So Dylan and his team have put together a fantastic package, which he'll talk about tonight. And this particular house is, I think it's Marbeck, is it? Marbeck? Yes. Is set up and designed for one of the sections out of Huapai. So talk to Dylan and the team about the deal on that. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Steve. So what we got, oh, yep, Keen. So Sam and the team from Squirrel to talk about the mortgage process and a little bit about that. In particular, the offering around home build, which is a specific offering for new home construction, which makes it a lot easier. And it's something that the construction industry's been screaming for some time, I think. Yeah. So welcome the team.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Stephen. Can everyone hear me okay? Or? Yep, great. I'm Sam Ludbrook. I'm from Squirrel. It's my colleague Marilise. We're going to have a chat to you all about the current housing market from a bank perspective. We're also going to have a chat around how you can put your best foot forward when you're approaching the bank or you're talking to your broker in terms of getting the best finance approval from the banks when you're looking to apply for a mortgage. Lastly, Marilise is going to have a chat with regards to our new home build product. At Squirrel, we're really passionate about new build homes, and there's a number of reasons why we're so keen on funding new build homes, particularly in the current market. Yeah, it's a very different market currently to where it was about 7 years ago. My wife and I moved back to New Zealand about 7 years ago. We, probably like a lot of Kiwis, we decided to go and do an OE. And we had a fairly extended one over there, and then we had a couple of kids, and we decided it'd be a good time to move back to New Zealand and raise our kids, and also buy a house. And 7 years ago, the market was very, very different. It took us 6 months to find a house. We eventually bought one at auction. We had to live with my dad for 6 months. That was pretty challenging, almost as challenging as finding a house. Anyway, we all survived. We're still on speaking terms, so that's good. But yeah, so the problem, 6 or 7 years ago, there was a massive supply problem, and we've still got a real fundamental shortage of supply of properties here in Auckland. That's slowly changing. We're seeing some really great property developments around, which is starting to ease the supply, but we've still fundamentally got a real supply problem here in Auckland. What's changed? A lot's changed in the last 6 or 7 years. 6 or 7 years ago, if you're a first home buyer and you're out there looking to buy a house, you were having to compete with a lot of investors. I started working for Westpac when I first came back 6 or 7 years ago, and it was a pretty common story for the poor old first home buyer. They would have to spend a lot of money. If you go to auction, it's an unconditional process. So you've got to, if you're a first home buyer and you've got a less than 20% deposit, you'll need to get a full registered valuation done. There's $1,000 there pretty much straight away. If you buy an existing house, you'll need to get a build report. There's another $600. A limb report, a bit of solicited advice. You're looking at about $2,000 before you even step into the auction room. And so for the poor old first home buyer, I'd have some who went through that process 2 or 3 times, and very quickly you start to eat away at your deposit. So fast forward to today, what's changed? Well, a lot's changed. In 2013, the Reserve Bank started getting pretty nervous around escalating property prices too. And in 2013, the Reserve Bank implemented what we call the speed limits. And what that meant was that if you're an investor, up until the end of last year, you needed a 40% deposit if you're buying an investment property. That pretty much put a handbrake on a lot of investors out there, almost immediately, probably knocked out 50% of them. We've seen a huge amount of other regulatory changes as well, so changes to how banks assess affordability, particularly for investors. We've seen banks really tighten up on overseas income, and that's affected the investor market as well. A lot of banks are very reluctant to rely on overseas income now. We've seen changes to the Overseas Investment Act. We've had the Bright Line test for investors. Investors now, if they buy and sell a house within 5 years, have got to pay capital gains tax. And so it's been a real cumulative effect for investors. And so in the current market, it's interesting, we were looking at statistics at Scroll the other day, probably 80% of the business we're writing now is for first home buyers. So as you can see, there's a real opportunity out there at the moment. If you're a first home buyer, now is probably the best time it's been for a long time to get out there and buy a home. So you're thinking probably that all sounds really good. What do I need to do to get a mortgage? As Steve alluded to, the first thing you need to do is go and talk to your bank. Make sure you can get a finance approval. With a finance approval, it puts you in a real strong position to go out there and negotiate on a home. Deposit, what do you need? Well, currently it's great for first home buyers. Our poor old investors need a 40% deposit. If you're a first home buyer, we can fund up to 95% of the value of a property depending on the bank and then depending on what you're looking at buying. So that's fantastic. Income, what do you need? Well, the banks are very different bank to bank. Not only do they look at deposit quite differently, they also test affordability quite differently. In the current market, we're looking at about 5 to 6 times your income if you're looking at buying a home. That can vary a lot bank to bank, depending on whether you've got any short-term debt. How many kids you've got can affect it as well, whether you're paying for childcare costs, private education, those sorts of things. The banks are increasingly scrutinising your expenses to make sure that they're not going to be putting you in a position of financial hardship if they're going to lend you the money. So that's your income and that's your deposit covered off. The other thing that you can really do to make sure you're putting yourself in a very strong position to get a mortgage is make sure that your accounts are in really good order. The banks are under increasing pressure to make sure that they're not, as I said, not putting you in a position of financial hardship. So what they're doing is really looking at your bank statements under a microscope at the moment. Typically, banks will want to see 3 months bank statements, and they will go through those with a fine-tooth comb. They'll be looking for unarranged overdrafts, they'll be looking for debt repayments, and they'll be looking at your savings history too. And so one of the key things that we talk to our potential customers about is trying to save the difference. A lot of banks now will look at how much you're currently paying in rent. What are your mortgage payments going to be? Can we evidence to the bank that you're saving the difference? So it really enables us to show to the bank that your new mortgage is going to be affordable. There's lots of other things that the banks look at too, and I'm not going to go into them in too much detail. In your packs, we've put our first home buyer guide in there. There's loads of great information in there about what you need to do, things to look out for, different types of property, and the risk for certain different types of property as well. So if you do have any questions at the end, there's about 4 or 5 Squirrel advisors here at the end, and you're welcome to come and have a chat to us. As I said before, new builds, and the point of tonight is to talk about new builds. And we, as I said, are huge advocates of new build homes. Steve covered off some of the real key benefits of buying a new home, and there's some real benefits finance-wise as well. So I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Marilise, and just going to have a chat around our new home build product and new build finance.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. So the biggest question that I'll just address to you that you guys might have is, what's the main difference between buying an existing house and something that's brand new? So there's the obvious reasons. It's brand new, it's cozy, it's warm, it's designed to exactly how you want. But the main difference as well to remember is it's no maintenance. And why we say that that's important is when you're actually moving into your house, you can actually focus on reducing your debt as quickly as you possibly can. So a big benefit to that is that you can reduce your mortgage, build some wealth, and then hopefully grow and get more properties from there. Whereas if you buy something that's existing, you generally have to do some renovations on that because it's a bit older, a bit colder, so you're investing your money in that, so it takes a little bit longer to actually build your wealth, the equity in the property. Now, we as brokers will always work in your best interest, so we actually go around finding the best solution available to your financial situation. And we, at the end of last year, created an awesome product which is called the Squirrel Home Build product, and that is beneficial to you guys when you're looking at building a house. The biggest thing that you guys have to remember is that there's no payments for you guys throughout the build until you get to the end. Now that is absolutely amazing because it means you don't have to worry about paying rent and your mortgage at the same time. So what we do is we actually build in the interest into the loan for you, we capitalise it, and you worry about it at the very end. The other awesome thing is that there's no progress valuations required throughout the build. Saves you guys some money as well. And we can work on as little as a 5% deposit. So as Sam covered off, the building funding that we get from banks is actually exempt from the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. So if you're buying an owner-occupied property, we can look as low as a 5% deposit, and investments can be 10%. So it's definitely the way to go. It's an easy product. I won't go into it too much. The main things that you need to know is you don't have to worry about covering rent and the mortgage at the same time. So it provides you with financial ease. We take care of everything, so we act as your project manager throughout the build as well, just making sure the build's done up to the progress payment schedule, and we advance the money from the bank to the builder. So everything happens in a nutshell with us. So come see us afterwards and we'll talk more about it in detail. So thank you for that.
All right, great. Thank you for that. So definitely go talk to them afterwards. They're really, really knowledgeable. And like they said, there's actually quite a number of Squirrel representatives here. So if you've got any finance questions, they'll be more than happy to help you out. So look, my name's Dylan Wilson. I'm the sales manager of Stonewood West. And I just wanted to give you a high-level view of the construction process, and it's going to be very high level because there is a lot to it. And I guess the biggest question I get is, how do I go from a bare piece of land to having a new house built on it and completed and moving in? You know, how hard is that? How do I make that happen? People assume that it's a very, very difficult process, and I suppose that if you don't partner with the right people and you're not armed with the right information, it potentially could be. So, you know, let's start from the beginning. So you've sorted out your finance. You've gone to Squirrel, and they've said yes, and all your finances are, of course, absolutely perfect. Hey, I know mine aren't. So then you've gone to look at land. So you know, maybe Shelley, Lance, or Steve has helped you out there, and you've found a nice lot of land, and you've got your geotech reports or whatever information you need. So then, what is the most important thing from there? And I think it's finding a building company or construction company or builders that you can trust, because often it's probably one of the biggest investments you're going to make. Even if it isn't the biggest, it's an awful lot of money, right? So you want to be making sure that you're partnering with an organisation or group of people that are going to make it happen. So normally, what do? We normally look on the internet, we Google, we ask our friends who they've used before, that sort of thing, do some searching. So then generally, you want to look at those people and see how long have they been operating for. So, have they been operating for a year? Have they been changing their name every year to avoid tax? What are they doing? It's important to understand the organisation and the people that you're dealing with. Of course, price is very important, but also, again, it comes back to how confident are you that that price is gonna stay the same throughout your agreement. So companies like Stonewood Homes, we've been around for 30 odd years, very financially stable now, and have a huge network and resource to call from. So whilst we're Stonewood West, we work in conjunction with the other Stonewoods. We've got access to head office and all the team there. So whenever I get stumped or whenever one of the team gets stumped with anything, we've got a huge amount of people to call on. And I think that's really, really important. So I guess we're talking about the trust, and it's an easy thing to say, trust me. And it's a harder thing to prove. So how do you give first home buyers who have never been through this process before, or first time investors who maybe it's not your first home, but it's still an early investment thing for you. So how do you build that trust with the people? And I always say, in the 15 years that I've been doing sales or thereabouts, it's you generally buy off people you like, right? But also part of that comes from the processes around what they're doing. So it's our systems that keep our customers coming back to us. And what our systems do is it enables us to take something that's quite complicated with lots and lots of different aspects in it, and consolidate it and manage it. So, for example, you come into the office, you had everything approved, you found that piece of land, you've picked a house, then we enter all that into our system. It links with our other system, Costa, and we work through all the different parts of your house. So, we have standard plans. So our standard plans, you can buy them as they are, but generally you want to move into, if you're going to be buying a new home that you're building, you want to move into something that you feel really, really comfortable with. And chances are you'll find something in our standard plans or our 3,000 other archive plans that you'll like, but often, maybe you want to make that room bigger. Maybe you don't like the toilet where it is and you want it to be moved. Maybe you want different cladding. Maybe you want a different roof, different colours. So we have architects. I obviously have my own opinions I can share, but architects, quantity surveyors, colour consultants to help work through that. So, if you want your room to be pink for your children, then we can make that happen. But what colour pink? What matches pink? What goes with that? Is it going to make the room feel bigger, or is it going to make the room feel smaller, or how's that going to impact on the real world? But also we're conscious of resale value as well, because obviously if you wanted 3 really, really tiny rooms and then 1 monstrous room, you might really like it, but chances are you'll move on to another property, bigger one or whatever later. And you've got to keep in mind resellability. So that's what we're there to guide you. Obviously, we'll do what you want, but we're there to give information. Another really, really important thing that is actually a requirement from the squirrel product, but something we like to do as well in our projects, is to do fully fixed price. So often you'll have a builder go, yeah, I can do, that's $500 a square metre, give you some super cheap fee to do it. And then at the end of it, they're like, well, our suppliers have increased their rates. Oh, we're going to have to pass that on to you. Or things like that, unforeseen things. Or they'll give you provisional sums for a kitchen, and they might give a $10,000 provisional sum, but in reality that's actually going to be $15,000. They know that, but they want to get the sale, so they get you to sign that off, and then upsell you throughout the process. So that's something you have to be very, very mindful of as well. So whilst we can do things like provisional sums, we prefer to partner really closely with our suppliers. And that's another benefit of dealing with a larger building company. We have really good relationships with, Harvey Norman's, placemakers, a whole bunch of suppliers, and they give us very, very good rates because we've got quite large buying power through them. So, things like our 10-year master builder, of course, a few builders will have that. But 50 years structural guarantee, all sorts of things. So you know that your products, they're not just being imported without any support. If something goes wrong, we can go back to our suppliers. We can deal with the issue for you and with you. And because it's been purchased through New Zealand, through the right channels, we get really, really good support. It's about consolidation of quality as well. We want to make sure that all of our products are of high quality. So, look, I guess the final thing from my perspective is we talked about trust and also honesty as well, because if you've been in the game long enough, you know that if you have a good experience, you're going to talk to your friends, talk to your family, maybe buy another property from us, that sort of thing. So honesty and trust are kind of my mantra for the whole sales process. We certainly have some really good projects now that are suiting the first home buyer or small investor. So we've got the Huapai Triangle area, which Steve spoke about before, and we've also got Parkview in Helensville. So a little bit further out, but beautiful place, guaranteed fantastic neighbours, and quite affordable as well, and all fixed price offerings. So look, if you are looking, do come and talk to us, or if you're just curious more about the process and what to look out for, then come and speak to me afterwards or one of the Stonewood team, and we'll help you out. So Robert Hu from Hong Hu Lawyers, he's going to give a small presentation. So I'd like to welcome him up to do that.
Thank you. So I should start from Maori, maybe. Tina koto, katua. So basically, I was invited by Stonewood this time, but a couple of years ago, we did a seminar presentation and invited by the school. And we are the law firm. We practice law in New Zealand, in Auckland. Actually, we have 3 branches. So maybe can give all of you the additional options. If you have lawyers, go further to your lawyers. But if you want to seek second opinion, you can go with us. We have one in North Shore, one in the CBD, and then in the East Auckland office. Basically, in past 18 years, we do huge of transactions. That's the market is quite good. Every day we do the conveyancing, buying house, selling house. But today's our topic is quite simple, is that you have the rights, we protect them. So basically my colleague and Tilay, we give some basic legal advice on the contract. When we talk about the contract, we always, for myself, my understanding is focus on 3P, that property, parties, and price. That's most important things. So each time, my very simple brief advice is that if you don't understand the contract, you should not sign it. You need to put at least a protective clause on the agreement and then sign it. At least you are safe. So that's the first one. So number two is that at least you need engage a good lawyers. In Hong Kong lawyers is one of the options. And my colleague will maybe give some more advice on the conveyancing part. She has done a huge amount of transactions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanae. I'm from Hong Kong Lawyers. I'm going to be speaking to you about two preliminary matters in a standard conveyancing procedure. So the first one would be conditions. When you make an offer, you'd normally find yourself contemplating whether to enter into a conditional agreement or an unconditional agreement. They are both legally binding. The difference is when they are in effect. So conditional agreements, it could be subject to the satisfaction of so many things, and the most common conditions could be finance, a limb report, or a building report. But for newly built houses, you normally find that they are subject to the issuance of a code compliance certificate or a CCC. CCCs, you'd sometimes find the settlement date is dependent on the issuance of a CCC. So for example, it could be that it's 10 working days after the issuance of a CCC. But we do recommend that you allow yourself sufficient time to organise things like funding, organise your mortgage, KiwiSaver withdrawal, and things like that. So the second thing that I'd like to speak to you about is the title. Normally we lawyers, us lawyers, we search the title, check what's on the title, see if there are any registered interests on there. If there's nothing on there, it might be a bright day for you. If there are any registered interests, speak to your lawyer, see what they mean to you, and what your entitlements are. Most common entitlement for a buyer could be the right to object to the vendor's title. That's commonly referred to as title requisitioning. Yeah, so as a final note, do your research, shop around, engage professionals like the guys here, and talk to Robert if you're looking for a lawyer. Thanks.
Hi guys. Okay. Yeah. So I'm the Easter egg. Right. Just say do your research. Yeah. Basically, I'm Leon. I'm founder of renapp.co.nz, and I have founded the site because a couple of years ago, when I was looking for my first home, I found some, there isn't many information out there, and real estate agents are really good. I approach a lot of Buffalo Thompson agents. They are really helpful, but they are not robots. They don't work 24/7. Unfortunately, they would like to do it. So I started a website called WinApp, and the purpose of the website is helping first home buyer as well as small investors to research. Just very small features that we have is something like map to indicate where you can afford. Basically, most of the features are free, so every single feature I'm showing you are free. You can access it, you can Google it, and you know, it's a first step to research into your first home. Okay. And talking about property information and legal information, I'm also providing some title search, but again, please do seek advice from professionals before you actually make into an agreement. But I'm showing you some basic elements of properties information. And also, I'm also giving you a list of checklists, things that you possibly want to check before you actually go buy the house. Things like flooding zone, slope. You don't have to be there before you're making a decision. And those features are all free, so you can just go and type the address. Unfortunately, I don't have any new properties. Those are all existing properties. I'm working with Stonewood to get some new properties into the database. That will be much more helpful. I also got stats around the area. So if you are not familiar with Auckland, you can, please talk to specialists in the area, like Buffalo Thompson agents in the area. They know much more than the website, but the website gives a brief indication on who lives there, what kind of income is there, what kind of people live there, and etc. So you can suit your lifestyle. And all those information are free. And of course, we give some type of valuation, computer estimated, adjusted every month. And recently, there are some downfalls, which is good for the first home buyer. And please do check it out before you actually want to buy anything. And of course, we have a couple of other information like schools and advertising. Cool. Okay, so please do your research and seek for professionals before you actually go into any agreement. Maybe check with that lawyer. That would be a good advice. But do check the website. It's all free. We only making a small profit on advertisement and some of the premium features, but it's helpful to know more about what you're buying before you actually go and see the property. So that's me. I'm a friend with Stonewood. So, cool. Thanks.